A lot of you guys have been asking me who works on what team and what characters do what for whatever. But in today's video, I kind of want to break down a more serious topic. I guess it's really serious because I've noticed the whole, y'all seen me on Twitter. If you haven't, don't go there. But point being is that right now, a lot of people are basically talking about how the game is just mashy and that there's no depth to the combat or teams or anything like that for that matter. And honestly, I've already gone over a mastering combat video that you can watch right here. I've already gone over like the 10 mega tips that I have for characters. And I've told you guys the best free-to-play teams for every 5-star character. So those are very important videos along with everything else that I've reached out or along with everything else that I've done, if you want to look at that. But in today's video, I'm pretty much going to be telling you guys the top five free-to-play characters that I think do, honestly, I think these are like the most important characters right now, not because they're free, and I really want to stress that, but some other stuff. So let me get into the criteria. The way that I like to do my videos lately is I pretty much gather my criteria on why I would choose these things, and then I tell it to you guys through whatever's going on. So as of right now, my criteria for which characters I think are the best for free to play. Number one, they have to have the most longevity for free to play's value, or at least a lot of longevity for the value that they provide. A good example of this would be that if you pulled for a limited banner character or even a standard banner character, both which you have to use currency for that you don't get easily, how long would they last in your account? Most of you are familiar with the term power creep, so you'll refer to the term power creep. So I guess that counts in this situation, but I'm not going to use that term here. The second point being that this character helps teach you the fundamentals of the game. And what do I mean by that? I mean not mashing. When you get to around like Shiyu level 7 or something like that, or Shiyu Tower 7, basically once you breach level 21, you should start noticing some of the different behaviors that enemies develop. Whether or not they're punishing you or attempting to punish you, whether or not they're attacking you, or whether or not they're changing up their attack patterns and working in team tactic. All of this stuff is basically to help you. So I need a character that's going to be able to teach you the fundamentals of the game. You're learning when to use your quick assist, learning when to use your tag outs, learning when defensive assists are useful, so on and so forth. And my final criteria is that it offers free-to-play players easy access to something incredibly powerful or incredibly useful. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Prefacing everything as a disclaimer, I want to make two things real clear. Number one, you don't have to take anything that I say as like Bible text. That's not what this video is for. It's mostly to open up your eyes so that you can see what I see, and I'm giving you a little like sneak peek into the way that I think about team building or what I value in characters, so on and so forth. Number two, Lycan and Ellen are automatically banned from this list. It should be obvious they're the best in the game, at least for whatever it is that we're looking at, whether that be DPS, the stun meter for Lycan, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're banned, so they will not be referenced in here, but if you have them, awesome, they are the best, no worries whatsoever. If you want to go for them, that's cool too. I feel like I wasted enough of your time, so number one is just straight up Anby. I think Anby is by far one of the best characters that a free-to-play player can invest into. Your only free stun character that you have in the game, but more importantly, her kit is absolutely insane for what it offers. A lot of what Anby is going to be doing is focusing on stun, but it's really, how do I explain this? The stun value or the days value that you're getting from this, it seems low in comparison to maybe Coleta or Lycan, because Lycan is the best of both worlds, right? He has speed and he has raw power. Coleta is slower, she has less attacks, but she has a lot of power to make up for it. Their multipliers are huge. In Anby's case, Anby's more so getting the days from her electric attacks or her skills, EX skill, regular skill, even the chain attack or ultimate, right? There are a couple different things that she can do that revolve around how you play this character. So a lot of the times what you'll see most players do is they won't use a skill until they get enough meter, until they get the EX, which isn't necessarily what you should be doing with any character for that matter. You can always pop a skill because skills before EX don't take energy. And in fact, some characters like Grace can abuse that, and they can continuously use skills without worrying about the energy cost and still get the same effect. And then when they do use EX skill, it's even better. And the same thing could be said for Anby. All of Anby's skills, any variant of that matter, is absolutely wonderful. Whether or not you launch the basic attack Thunderbolt that has the slam down, whether or not you do the final fourth hit in her basic attack, whether or not you do regular special attack, which is a straight up uppercut and launches enemies into the air while Anby stays on the ground, or if you do the EX special attack, which is still an uppercut, has more damage, more stun, more days, and she launches them up in the air, which gives you an amazing switch tag opportunity. Anby's crazy. But let me talk about the I was about to call these things constellations, the cinemas, the copies of Ambi real quick. C0 is fine. Obviously she's free, so it doesn't really matter like how you're going to spend this. Everyone has one. But once you start snagging copies of her, that's when you're going to start noticing some of these bonuses really buff themselves up. C1 brings energy regen to the table for about 30 seconds, which is big because that gives you more EX special attacks and opportunities for a lot of the switch tags that I'm talking about. C2 is going to bring you both damage and stronger daze to enemies in both a normal or stun state respectively, meaning if you use uppercut and they're not dazed, they're going to take more daze. If you use uppercut and they are dazed in that stun state, then they're going to take more damage. C4 is not only going to increase her own energy beyond what C1 was doing, but it also increases the energy of other electric agents on your team. Those being like Anton, Grace, Rena, any future electric characters that come out. And remember, Ambi being the free stun character, a lot of you are going to have to be using Ambi because you either don't have another stun option or Ambi just fits on every single team possible. But I'll talk about that in a little bit later. Lastly, we get into C6. C6 gives her this charged stack ability, which a few other characters in the game do have. Other characters have this, but thanks to Ambi's unique and strong juggle properties on these specific attacks, she constantly dishes out higher damage than normal. The specific attacks being like what you see on screen here, right? The dash attack, the basic attack, thunderclap, the EX special, the regular special, all these different moves that you'll primarily see Ambi's doing in these juggle clips. If you had C6, you're getting all of these bonuses just for playing the character in like this crazy combo style that you can enjoy. And then before, I mentioned it earlier, but she fits on a number of teams that feature both free to play and premium units. So this falls under line with the second criteria that I had, the first criteria that I had, giving you the most longevity for any free to play's value. And to address the number two, right, which was the fundamental aspect of this, Ambi is kind of like the Lene, that's her name. I think it's Lene from Under Night and Birth. It's a whole different fighting game, and I was gonna say Ryu, but she's not like Ryu at all. But I'm gonna use the same concept. When we say something is like this is like Ryu from blank, it doesn't necessarily mean that she has Hadouken, she has a Tatsu, she has no. It means that this character for this game is supposed to teach you all of the basics about the game. If you learn how to play Ambi, you essentially learn how to play Zenless Zone Zero. The way she teaches you the fundamentals of the game is super easy, like applying anomaly or building daze, but she's the perfect unit to start teaching you how to juggle and launch enemies. Now this is getting to a little bit of like stylized stuff with combat, but I know a lot of you guys have been asking me about that, so I'm just teaching y'all now. And yeah, I said juggle. If you've been following me on Twitter, you've seen all the crazy stuff going on all week. I've been sharing clips. A lot of people have been sending me clips, DMing me clips or videos of them doing juggles and combos and launchers and everything like that, going from training mode, going from in the game, going from Hollow Zero, and even Shiyu defense. So these things are valid, they're viable, and we're optimizing them day by day. Ambi's attacks in particular may seem simple, but if I had to point out the two attacks from her kit that I really want to focus on, it would be the lightning bolt and the dash attack. Now, lightning bolt is basically her special, her skill or whatever. And you can use normal or you can use EX Thunderbolt. It doesn't really matter. Both of these moves will launch the enemy so long as that enemy is not an elite. And you can lift up multiple enemies if you're good at CC. What do I mean by that? Let's say you had Saokaku or Saokaku, I think is how you pronounce her name, or Nicole, and they group the enemies up together. If Ambi were to uppercut all of those enemies, they would all go in the air, meaning that you could juggle as many enemies that don't fall down, which is a wonderful feeling. You can now follow this up with her dash attack, being one of the fastest frame startups in the game and being able to semi-infinitely juggle the enemy on her own with or without the help of your team. Ambi is phenomenal, guys. If you have Ambi, which I know you do because she's free, go ahead and invest in her. She's awesome. Next up, I want to talk to you guys about Lucy, who brings some solid heat to any team, literally. Is that a pun? Lately, the boys and I have been experimenting with some more not so obvious mechanics in the game, one of them being quick assist. Now, I'll do a detailed video on this later, but for now, I'm going to point you in Ryu's direction since the video is now live on his channel. Every character has a quick assist. You can think of this like a tag attack from any type of like Marvel vs. Capcom game, or if you play Skullgirls, one of those. But the game doesn't really tell you how to trigger these quick assists for every character and why they're more important to pay attention to than you would think. Now, from our own testing, every support character has 1 to 4 actions that will trigger a quick assist. We tried to look at some other characters that might not have been support characters, like for instance Ellen and doing the scissor kicks, but she doesn't trigger a quick assist, so we really feel like it's only supports as of right now. The thing about that is Rena's EX skill tells you it will trigger a quick assist, but Lucy's does not. And it's only with her EX skill too. So there are some support characters that have different things that may or may not tell you that. And I think it might have just been like a base roster thing, right? They knew they were going to write it out in Rena and Nicole, but then the other support characters didn't have it for a little bit, and like Lucy still doesn't have it. Now in Lucy's case specifically, this is major because if you home run the pig using her fly ball, which is where she shoots up the boar in an arc, you can actually dash cancel the recovery frames of her skill and sneak in some attacks while she's still triggering the quick assist. And this just lets you do some like nasty shenanigans or whatever with your teams and getting a little bit of extra energy and damage off whenever you want it. But speaking of the fly ball, now we can talk about the boars. All three of them carry over each of her offensive stats: attack, impact, crit rate, and crit damage, meaning the assisted damage they do on the field can quickly add up all the time in your favor. On top of that, these pigs have what we're calling pig loops. I didn't make it up, Soul did, but I kind of like it because it rolls off the tongue. But anyway, TLDR, when using specific attacks from Lucy, the pigs will store this kind of like Tatsu spinning move. And it's not just one of them, but all three of them do this spinning move. They have the juggle properties of what I just talked about with Ambi's dash attack, which now opens up the door for new combos that weren't possible because of the way that frame data works in this game. What I mean by that is when you use Ambi's EX skill and she slings them up in the air, let's say that you didn't trigger the stun combo, right? And Ambi falls down. It's physically impossible for Ambi to be the one to carry that loop and pick up the combo. We don't have any OTGs in the game just yet, but I'm sure we'll get some in the future. So how would you make up for that? You would essentially use Lucy with the boars. The boars would be out. They would already have that Tatsu spinning move stored up. You would EX with Ambi, and then the boars would literally run under the enemy and they would all start spinning their bat. And then you're gonna see like doom, 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 and it will carry the enemy so that you can juggle them with or without Ambi. It's crazy stuff. It's really cool to look at. And yes, this works in Hollow Zero. This works in Shiyu defense. This works in your proxies, your rally commission. As long as it's not a giant mecha boss, you could juggle whatever you want in this game. Now to finish Lucy off, all of her copies boost the team-wide damage phenomenally. But the important one here is C6. Anytime an enemy gets hit with an EX skill, a flaming pig will drop from the sky, dealing 300% fire damage in an explosion. The stack and timer for that Chiron buff that Lucy has can now be infinitely reset this way. And thanks to her powerful skill having such a long range going far ahead and up, Lucy doesn't actually need to be on the field for a long time. And for that, she teaches you more about meter management, keeping your buffs, so your buff up times, juggle opportunities, and the quick assist that I just mentioned. Moving away from Lucy, we can talk about baby girl, which I mean, the last time I said that, it was going to be Grace, but in this one, we're going to talk about like my favorite bratty bimbo, who's like not a bimbo, but she's Nicole. We're talking about Nicole. Nicole's kit is phenomenal. I originally was sleeping on this kit, and while I knew she had CC, it wasn't like strong CC, so to speak, right? Like I really wasn't looking at the advantages of the gravity orb because it felt so weak at C0. But the more me and the boys started playing around with Nicole and like what this orb could actually do, I think I did a whole 180 about this character. So I'm gonna break this down. Nicole has defense reduction for the entire team. It doesn't last a long time, but it lasts long enough for you to be able to do some burst damage in between that window. Now, the cool thing about this defense reduction is the way that it works. It's not like you pop the gravity field and then they have defense reduction like for 3.5 seconds or whatever it is, and then it goes away. No, that gravity field on field, okay, you have defense reduction. When you leave the gravity field, no more defense reduction. Like you have 3 seconds after leaving the gravity field, and then the defense reduction goes away. The reason it works that way is for one of two reasons that I haven't fully confirmed yet, but I know that that's just what happens. One, it's because just the way the orb works and it doesn't count until you leave it. Or two, it's because the orb will constantly re-trigger the defense reduction, because the way that her kit reads is that anytime they're hit by her EX skill, regular skill, chain attack, whatever, just the orb itself, the defense reduction will apply as long as she has those enhanced attacks or enhanced bullets, whatever it is. And then you get that just by literally using the orb and then doing a basic attack once. So it's totally fine. Now, as far as her attacks goes, Nicole might have one of the wonkiest attack strings in the game, but it's her skill that really sets things off. And you'll notice that so much because I'm only going to talk about her skill. And you might be asking yourself, what does her skill offer? So I'm going to answer that. Okizeme, quick assist triggers, instant corruption, currently the strongest form of crowd control in the game. She has full invulnerability on all versions of using this skill, and she has the most range in the game when using this skill. I mean, literally, the orb just goes full screen. I don't know what's in that suitcase, but I need it. Beyond that, just like the previous characters and the fact that she's free, we can talk about the cinemas. So for those of you that have been getting multiple copies of Nicole, don't worry, I seen y'all comment that. You're like, oh man, I got C4 Nicole, I don't want her, she's trash. Listen, bro, C4 Nicole is probably one of the better free-to-play options in the game. That's her best cinema in my opinion. C1 is already strong. It's going to give you a strong anomaly buildup from the orb itself, and it turns it into an even deadlier version. So something that you were already doing would have been getting the corruption instantly. I'm going to teach you the trick how to do that. C1 makes it so that it happens faster and you don't have to do the full trick. C4 now turns the radius of the gravity orb and increases it all the way around, full circle, full circumference of the radius by 3 meters. And something cool about Nicole's gravity orb that we're just now figuring out, she has an insane hitbox. If you play fighting games, you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, a hitbox is basically the size that this move is able to hit something. In the event you were able to put someone above the orb's hitbox at the top is so high that it will catch anything that just happens to be falling down. Think of this as the board juggle that I mentioned earlier, meaning now you can create some really stupid stuff like infinite juggles with Nicole and her dash attack, going back into Ambi and getting her EX skill. You can create some things where it's like infinite energy meter or infinite energy regain when the enemies don't fight back, whatever it is, right? And I know some of y'all are hearing like, oh, you can just mash and like enemies don't fight back, whatever, blah, blah, blah. When you guys get to Shiyu defense or the harder forms of content, you're gonna notice the people who tell you can just mash, I'm not gonna call them any type of, you know, this and that, but I will say that that's not entirely true. The mobs are smarter. They get smarter and it feels like they have guerrilla tactics when they're playing the game. What the mobs are able to do is if one shoots a laser at you, you will have one of the like the sword mob, right? The one with the sword arm. If he notices homies in the back loading up a laser, he will run at you. If one of them is loading up a grenade to chuck it at you, you'll have the big dude with the helmet and like he punches you and, you know, does all this other kind of crazy movement. He will lunge at you with a Superman punch and try and get you in a combo so that when the bomb explodes, you just get stunned. You can't get out. If you don't parry or you don't dodge in time, there's so many implications that happen if you're not paying attention. So when you see people saying, I can just mash, I can close my eyes and mash, tell them to do it in your face. Go to Shiyu defense, like floor 10, because no one's at end game yet, and then tell them to do it in your face. It's a funny thing. I wanted to rant a little bit, but back to Nicole. Just like the other support characters, one of the best characters in the game to assist with not only advanced combos, but the same thing I spoke about on Lucy. That quick assist trigger is gigantic in almost every scenario you pop it off, because 9 times out of 10, your DPS has some amazing quick assist. Then you can get really wonky. You can start adding like team combos into there, switching out, building up stun while she's attacking, putting another gravity orb on the field. There's a lot of things that you can do with quick assist. The last bonus to Nicole itself or herself will be Zhu Yin. If you aren't pulling Ellen or if you have the funds to get both, Zhu Yin and Nicole are kind of like the only ones that work together as of right now. And going into 1.1, we don't even know if we're getting another ether agent yet. So if you do happen to play or want to main Zhu Yin, you kind of have no choice but to build Nicole. And this works wonders because the two of them together, you think Freeze is strong now with Salkaku and Lycan and Ellen. Nicole and Zhu Yin just by themselves are putting out more corruption and the triggers for corruption than they're putting out freezes. And then if you add a third character, because you don't have another ether agent, you add a third character like Ambi or Rena or whoever you want that's going to be able to apply a different element, you're going to see corruption, disorder, corruption, disorder. Like, it's dumb. Number 4, which, yeah, this is number 4, right? Soldier 11, guys. Now, Soldier is one of those characters that, again, just like Nicole, I was kind of sleeping on Soldier. I wasn't really looking at her too much, but I knew that Soldier had 2 things that I already knew that I liked. She has basically the attack timing window, so you time attacks correctly or properly, and you get certain benefits. And a lot of players don't actually understand this, so I'm going to explain this. Number 2, she has just raw damage output. Soldier 11's damage output is some of the best in the game. Not because that is just like straight up like, oh yeah, she has 1800% multiply. No, it's because of what it does. It's the fact that she's attacking you with 1 slash and that 1 slash does 20 hit. It's because she always has access to this raw damage that you don't have to do anything besides execute properly, that she's one of the better characters, especially for a free to play. She fills all the criteria that I was talking about earlier. Out of all the standard characters, Soldier 11 might be the best standard character you can pull besides Lycan as a new player on accident. Her core skill naturally increases increases her own crit rate while buffing her attack's damage by over 40%. And most of you are gonna read Fire Suppression, which is her passive. You're gonna go to her skill and you're gonna read that's how you activate it, which means I can only get Fire Suppression from her skill or using her ultimate. What a lot of you won't read is a little thing right beneath her basic attack that says you can manually trigger Fire Suppression without a single amount of energy. So now, as I mentioned earlier, you always have immediate access to the incredible damage without fear of energy. But that doesn't mean you don't want to use her skill though. And in fact, it adds so many things. Like, it's just wonky stuff that you can do with this now. So let's talk about her EX skill, Fervent Fire, I believe is the name of it, which has some ridiculous potential. Now, Fervent Fire already has multipliers that are basically over 600% for both damage and daze, so it's pretty big, which means you do want to use it to build up the daze meter, to build up the damage when they're stunned, anything like that, right? You don't want to just waste it. It attacks in a wide arcing slash, and as I said before, has a multitude of hits that happen from that one slash. It has amazing switch tech opportunities, and I'll explain this briefly. Basically, it's a long enough lasting move that you can swap in and out for free. You can set up set plays, so like Nicole's orbs or using Lucy's home run bat, the fly ball, and get another quick assist off of that. And all of this can happen while Soldier 11 is still doing the slash on the field. Now, obviously, this comes in like execution, right? You can't be slow about it, but it's the fact that you can do it given the sense that you have the execution for it. And so outside of the manual way to trigger Fire Suppression, which is simply like timing it, you have EX skill, chain attack, and ultimate. All of these will instantly activate Fire Suppression for the next 8 slashes. And so just briefly, the way you should be using this is by manually triggering it yourself until you get about 80 energy. Then save it until you get a chain attack, which happens after you stun the enemy completely. Once you initiate the chain attack and then you go into Soldier 11 to start using Fire Suppression, because she'll automatically have it, don't use skill immediately. That's what a lot of people do, is they go in, they use chain attack, and then they use skill again. You basically wasted Fire Suppression. You could have had 16 free slashes and you wasted it. But I'm gonna tell you how to get 24. 8, 16, 20, yeah, 24. After the chain attack, doing it this way essentially gives you 3 Fire Suppressions worth of damage, speed, and set play for the cost of 1 bar. Chain attack, Fire Suppression's already activated, you burn 8 slashes. Then you do skill, Fire Suppression is now activated again, you burn another 8 slashes. By this point, you may or may not have ultimate, depending on the order. You would have popped ult, that gives you another Fire Suppression, and now you have 24 slashes for free with the cost of 1 bar. Then you just manually trigger Fire Suppression for the rest of it. The cool thing about this is you're constantly building meter from using Fire Suppression. So if you do this in a particular order, you basically build enough meter to just pop another skill, which would then give you 4 to 5 Fire Suppressions in 1 burst combo. And this is why I said she has just raw damage output at almost any given time with immediate access that no other character in the game has except maybe Ellen. Soldier 11 has simple, effective combos with outstanding damage. She's an amazing partner to Ambi, Coleta, Ben, Nicole, Lucy, Piper, basically half the roster. And then of course her cinema copies are insanely strong too. So if you end up pulling a couple Soldier 11s or you use some dupes, look at what C1 does, look at what C2 does, come back to me and say, you know what, EO, you were right, this character's cracked. But that's gonna be it for me today, guys. I know I said top 5, but I really only have 4 because like saying a top 4 just sounds kind of weird. If I were to give you a 5th, honestly, it's one of 2 things. 1, pick whatever you want, or 2, you got to get yourself an EO. Pull yourself a copy of EO in the game, and I promise you your game is going to improve significantly. I don't know why I did that. It is what it is. Anyhow, you can use Grace, Coleta, like literally whatever you want to fill in that 5th character for, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. This isn't like a static, you need to have these characters or else. It's mostly just pointing out why these characters are so important to a free-to-play player who's trying to learn the game or trying to have fun with the game or really just like invest into the game as of right now. I tried to pick something or a couple characters that weren't really like, I guess, super meta defining, because those are the obvious ones. And I don't want you to think like you have to get a character and you have to play them forever, right? Because that's not how action games work. We've all played Devil May Cry, I'm sure, or any other type of action game like Bayonetta, where we switch weapons, we switch skills, we switch, like we don't want to do the same thing forever. Yeah. So having characters that are like really strong now and then can slowly phase out while you build new characters, I feel like is the better way to play. It doesn't insinuate power creep in the slightest, and it also makes it feel like, hey, if I wanted to go back and play Soldier 11, I've already put in the time and invested into making my Soldier 11 a proper character. I could always go back and play Soldier 11. And from what we've seen going into Shiyu defense, I think it's actually floor 7. That's when you start needing 2 teams anyway. So the floors on Shiyu defense alternate so easily or so quickly that you'll see one floor needs fire and ether. You'll see another floor needs ice and electric. You'll see one floor all electric. You'll see another floor all ice or all physical. So there's so many different things that you can benefit from by just having a multitude of characters that you're able to play and understand, not so much build into, because you can always swap out gear. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Let me know if you liked the video, comment, subscribe. Thank y'all, bro. We have grown 10,000 subscribers since uploading Zenless Zone Zero. I don't know how y'all did that, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that. If we can like just, I don't know, bro. Somebody told me we can hit 50K in like 2 months. I don't believe it, but if it happens, I might have to throw a party. Everybody's invited, except people that are not cool. If you're not cool, you can't come. Like, why am I talking like Morty from Rick and Morty? Hey, yo, I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.